Hey everybody, today we're talking about Superman, the last days of Lex Luthor. Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent Casina, and today we're doing some more Superman. This is Superman, the last days of Lex Luthor. It is a Black Label book by Mark Waid, Brian Hitch, Kevin Nowlan, and David Baron. Hitch is doing the pencils, Kevin Nowlan doing the inks, and David Baron the colors. Written by Mark Waid. This is a great book. I finished reading this last night for the first time, and to me, this is an all-time Superman Lex Luthor story right after All-Star Superman. Like, it's that good. And it's a different type of Superman Lex Luthor story because it's about their relationship from the beginning of life, up until the end of life with Lex Luthor. This is going off the Superman Secret Origins origin, where Lex Luthor was a child alongside Clark Kent back in Smallville. So you do have a flashback to those days in the early pages here, where you see Lex like losing his hair in a fire. So it's that older continuity. But this is a Black Label book, and it's not Black Label because it's adult themes or anything. Lex Luthor does have a virus, but nobody's cursing. There's no nudity. There's not ultra violence or anything in here. I think it's really just Black Label to highlight Brian Hitch's art on an oversized format, basically. Like, he did Heaven's Ladder, the Treasury Edition, with Mark Waid years and years ago, and now he's doing this. So it's Brian Hitch's art on an oversized scale, and I think that's kind of the reason why it's Black Label, because they're the imprint at DC that has these kind of square-bound books. So I'm not complaining. I thought it was great. Three issues here. I think they're all double size, so about 48 pages. So you're getting quite a bang for your buck. It retails for $30. This is the hardcover. I don't know if they'll have a soft cover at some point, but this literally just came out a couple weeks ago. I was reading the issues, or at least I read the first one, and that one came out like years ago. And I read an interview with Hitch, and he was basically saying, like, this was written a long time ago when Mark Waid was still at Boom Studios as, like, the editor-in-chief or head editor over there. And then Brian Hitch started drawing issue 1, then went over to do Venom and did a bunch of issues over there, and then got on something else. So, like, DC really shouldn't have put issue number 1 out before the other two were finished, 2 and 3. So they finally got everything done. And so now you have it all collected together. So it's pretty awesome. The one main thing I have about this art is that Kevin Nowlan is the inker. And I've seen different inkers on Brian Hitch. I've seen Paul Neary, who did a lot of his stuff early on JLA and Authority. And Stormwatch, I just read some Paul Neary stuff. I've read Hitch inking himself. Like, I think he did a lot of the Venom and Hawkman stuff he did was inking himself. I think he's got an inker on Redcoat right now. But Kevin Nowlan has his own style. Like, he's his own artist also. And every once in a while, Kevin Nowlan will Kevin Nowlan Brian Hitch's Superman face into a Kevin Nowlan Superman face. And, like, Wonder Woman here looks like how I imagine Brian Hitch draws her normally. And this Superman looks like Hitch. But every once in a while, you get a Kevin Nowlan Superman face where it's totally different. And you'll see that in the back, too. Like, they have the pencils and the inks in the back material. And I don't know how well you can see it on the video, but Superman's face from Brian Hitch and Superman's face from Kevin Nowlan are two entirely different faces. Even Lex's face is the same, but for whatever reason, Kevin Nowlan is going to Kevin Nowlan. He does have a nice level of detail. He's not a terrible inker for Brian Hitch. I just found it weird that Superman's face kind of altered a little bit depending on the mood of Kevin Nowlan, the inker, and found that a little strange. So that's my one critique of the artwork. It's phenomenal. It's great. It's fantastic. However, it's kind of inconsistent in terms of Superman's face. Now, if Kevin Nowlan got an agreement with Brian Hitch and they shook hands and said, hey, I'm going to do whatever I want to do, and Brian Hitch is like, cool, see you later, fine. But, like, why the inconsistency, I don't know. Could have been the passage of time that it took to draw and ink all these issues because they got caught up in other things. I have no idea, but it's strange. So, what is the story of the last days of Lex Luthor? as written by Mark Waid, right? It's a concept of Superman is confronted by Lex Luthor, and he's like, why are you causing trouble, Lex? And Lex is like, take a look. So Superman uses his X-ray, microscopic vision, all the things to look at Lex's cells and discovers that he's dying. And Lex Luthor is like, will you save me? And Superman says yes. And Luthor's like, ha, gotcha, I'm live streaming this. And the whole world is like, ugh, why are you saving Lex Luthor? He doesn't deserve to live. He's a jerk. And Superman is like, well, I have to stand by my principles. I'm saving every life I can. And this goes back to Mark Waid's rant against Men of Steel, probably, where Superman should never take a life in his opinion, which is fine. That's totally a valid opinion to have. But anyway, Superman is like, well, you got me. I was going to help you anyway, but now you really got me because I said it in front of the whole world. And I'm not going to let the world down by letting them know that Superman is not going to keep his word, much less try to save everybody that he possibly can, which is kind of the oath that Superman's taken. So the first two issues are Superman going around the cosmos, around time. We go to the 31st century with the Legion. We go to Poseidonus, which is where Lori Lamaris lives. That's the mermaid people. Superman's first girlfriend. You get a little undersea action. You go to the Fortress of Solitude. You go to the Phantom Zone. You go to Wonder Woman in Themyscira, which has a nice scene with the lasso of truth as Superman takes care of other things around the world. That was really cool. Just like a guided tour of the galaxy almost to let you know that the DC universe is big. And basically, Superman's looking for a cure from all these advanced technologies around the world with magic and science, even future science, the whole thing, and ultimately comes up short. And the third issue is how Superman and Luthor reckon with that fact that, they have tried and tried and tried and ultimately find no cure for Lex's condition. And Brainiac shows up and causes some havoc in the third issue. And that's all I really want to say about it, because the third issue, to me, like as cool as the first two issues are with them traveling the cosmos and kind of this, buddy cop film, because Lex is kind of dying all the way through. He's getting weaker and weaker as time goes on. You do have this nice third issue with some twists that I was not expecting. Brainiac showing up was kind of forecast because he's on the hardback, right, on the art. So you're like, all right, Brainiac's going to show up at some point, which is great. Brian Hitch drawing Brainiac and Superman and Lex Luthor is awesome stuff. But the way they wrapped this up, I thought, was a really, really cool way to do it. There is a resolution. There is character growth. I'll say that. And I did not see... You think it's going one way, and then it goes the other way. In a way that's you're like, oh, you know what? That works. Like, that really works. That ending is a cool ending, even though it's maybe a little bit of a bait and switch at the end. But the way that Mark Waid has built up Luthor's character in here, he despises Superman, but he's at such a late stage in his despicableness, or whatever you want to call it, despisal of Superman, hatred of Superman, that he's like, you know what, I'll talk to you. Like, I hate you, but I'll talk to you, and because I need your help. And every once in a while, he'll like react to something like, oh, I can't stand this. I must rage against the machine that is Superman, and he's an alien, and he's God, and all these things that Lex thinks about Superman. But he'll also crack wise when Superman's actually trying to be earnest and trying to be his friend and things like that, and just be like, like, you remember that I hate you, right? You remember that we're the worst enemies in the world. He'll bring up some humor there. So that portrayal of Lex throughout the book, and then when you get to the ending, it was just like the cherry on top. Like, oh, this makes so much more sense because of the way Lex was written in this book. Now, it's not the Lex Luthor you saw in the Superman movie, because that guy really hates Superman. But that's what I'm saying. Like, this is late stage hatred where he's like, you know what? I don't like you, but I need your help. I'm still trying to mess with you, but I do really need your help. And I think that says something today in America. We had a tragic event the other day. As I'm recording this, you're probably going to see this in 2 weeks from that tragic event. You'll know what I'm talking about. And people are against each other right now, like really bad, and it sucks. It's not a nice place to be. And if you can get one thing from this book, it's that even your most hated enemy, or who you think your most hated enemy, is not your enemy, and will go out of their way to help you in your time of need. And I think that's the most American way thing that Superman does all the time. Whether people have their political differences or religious differences, most times you see somebody in trouble on the side of the road. If there's a fire or somebody's really in trouble, people will jump in there to save them and ask, and help them out first, whether or not they've got the right bumper sticker on their car. That's what I want to believe in America. And I think we're still there. We're just too in our own heads in the internet to do it. But anyway, this was a fantastic book. Go check it out if you haven't. To me, this is another all-timer in terms of Superman stories. Like, you're talking about Superman evergreens, people are talking about Birthright, talking about All-Star Superman. To me, Last Days of Lex Luthor is going on that top 10 list. It's a phenomenal story. And it's brand new, so it's pretty cool to have this in 2025. So check it out. Let me know what you guys thought about this down below in the comments, and I will see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.